Okay, welcome everyone to today's end user training for Digital Futures PREMHost CloudPBX based and built on 3CX. So today I am going to review the use of the Fanvil phone with our system. And if you have any questions later on, please feel free to email me with those questions, and let's go ahead and jump in. So the most important thing to start with when you are first using the system is that you make sure to go through the proper voicemail setup, and you'll see why. So to access voicemail on the Fanvil phone, you press the message button. You'll be prompted to enter your personal identification number plus the #. And just so you know, the PIN was sent to you in a welcome email from Digital Future. That would have been yesterday. If you did not see it appear in your inbox, please check your spam folder for that welcome email. It will come from no_reply@dfcloudpbx.com. After you enter your PIN, you'll need to dial 9 to go to options. From there, you'll be presented with the following options. The important ones are the ones in orange. So most importantly, you'll need to dial 5 and record your self-identification message. All that really is record your first and last name. That's it. By doing so, that will allow the system to identify your name in the system, and you'll be able to be searchable in a search by name directory, and your name will be read off when by the system in your voice when calls are transferred to you. Now, currently, I don't believe you have a search by name directory in place, so this isn't as important, but it is important to go to the next step and dial 8 to change the greeting message. The standard greeting message is very generic. It doesn't even give the caller your extension number. So often people will hang up rather than leave a voicemail. So it is important that you record a greeting message. It can just be short and simple, letting the caller know that they've reached the correct extension and that they should leave an email. All right, that's it. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next. So now we're going to go over your phone. Everyone has an identical phone. Everyone's phone is similarly programmed. That is the Fanvil X6U. So I'm going to break the phone down a little bit so you'll have a better understanding of what sections of the phone are used for what actions. So if you've had the phone to look at for a while, I'm sure that if you've made any internal calls or external calls, you've noticed that the top large display is where you will interact with calls, inbound and outbound on the system. And that the 4 soft buttons at the bottom here change their usage based upon the status of the phone. And then secondly, you'll notice the 2 smaller displays below that, all of which have the users on the system programmed on those buttons, which allow you to press the button to call them. It also allows you to use those buttons to transfer calls to them. And there's also a page all button at the top that will allow you to send a page to all idle phones on the system. And then lastly, at the bottom, this red button is the button that pages through from page 1 to page 2 currently for these programmable button displays. In other words, page 1 will have a list of all the users. Page 2 will also have a list of users for intercom. And there are multiple pages that can still be added to this if you want to add other types of information such as speed dials, etc. So you just press this button and it'll cycle through from 1 to 2 and back to 1. All right, here we go. Next page. So here's your button cluster. And this is just a snapshot of all of the buttons that are below the main display. And I want to make sure that everyone understands what these icons are for future reference. So the first is the hold button. So when you press this button, it will put the current call on hold and they will hear music on hold. And that music on hold cycles through different music that doesn't harm the ear of the person that's been put on hold. The next button is your transfer button. We're going to go through how to use the transfer button. Then the third one is your conference button. We're also going to go through the usage of that. Then your phone book button, which you probably won't use much because it's just a list of the users on the system. This next one, the call log button, will be useful because that displays all calls missed, inbound, outbound, and answered, so that you can select them and call them again if you want. Then that important voicemail button, just press that, access the system. The headset button you will not use because the headsets that are going to be attached to the phones actually have the ability to answer calls and open up a line without touching this button. So you'll never need to use it. The next button is the redial button. When you press it, you'll get the ability to, you'll have presented on the display of the phone a list of numbers that you have dialed from the keypad, and it will allow you to redial by just selecting one. Then, of course, there's the speaker button. The speaker button, if a call is alerting at your phone, you can press the speaker button to answer the call. If the phone's idle and you press the speaker button, of course, it will open up a line and allow you to dial. And we'll go through some other uses of the speaker button later on. Then you have your mute button. When you press the mute button, it will mute whatever microphone is currently in use, whether it's the headset microphone or the speaker and microphone for use of the speaker phone, and then, of course, the handset speaker as well. Then on either side of the mute button, you have the volume down and volume up. So these affect the volume based upon the status of the phone. When the phone is idle and you press the volume up or down, it will increase or decrease the volume of the ringer. If you are on a call, it will increase or decrease the volume of the speaker, whether it's your handset, the speakerphone, or your headset connected to the phone. And finally, you have the display selection control as part of that button cluster. This allows you to move between the icons on the main display. So up and down and horizontal. And then the OK button allows you to make a selection of an icon if you need to, and allows you to move back and forth. Probably not something you'll use a lot, but it is available. Dialing. So if you've had to dial what is often referred to as a trunk access number, such as 9, before dialing a number outbound, you no longer have to do that. So when you dial outbound, either local or long distance, you can either dial a 7-digit number for local numbers, or you can dial 1 plus the area code plus the 7-digit local number, or that would be 11-digit dialing. Or lastly, you can dial 10 digits, which is just the area code and the 7-digit local number. So any of those 3 that you're comfortable with will work. And then if you do need to dial internationally, you dial 011 plus the country code and the phone number. And then, of course, for dialing internal extensions, just dial the 3-digit extension to call another extension at any site. And you'll also be able to, of course, press any of the second display buttons on the first page to simply dial any other user on the system. All right, intercom. So on the second page of the display for the second display, I have set up dedicated intercom buttons. And intercom is think of intercom as a direct page to another extension. So as an example, if you were to press the top button, the Buddy Intercom button, it would alert at his phone, and if he wants to accept the call, the intercom, he'll accept it, and it'll automatically turn on his speakerphone function, and you'll be able to talk to each other across speakerphones. And I'm sure you've noticed there's a page all button at the very top of the second displays. So what the page all button does is allow you to page all idle phones through the speakers. To do so, you would pick up the handset, press the page all button. You'll need to wait to hear a tone. Once you hear the tone, you can then make the announcement and then hang up the handset. So that will not interrupt phones that are currently on a live call. It will only be announced through idle phones. Okay, so let's talk about the different statuses of the phone and what that main screen will look like. So your main screen, when it's idle, will present 2 call appearances, and those are these top 2 buttons with your extension number and name on it. So when calls come into your phone, they're going to ring first at the top button here. If a second call comes in, it'll ring at the second one. Then you have 3 park buttons. And the park buttons are used, think of park buttons. You currently have park buttons, I know. But think of park buttons as a system-wide hold, because every single phone on the system has park 1, 2, and 3 buttons on them. When you're on a call and you press any of these buttons, that caller will be put on a system-wide hold on that button that you pressed. And the caller can then be picked up by pressing the appropriate park button on any phone in the system. One of the advantages to using park over transfer is that there's no time threshold that you have to worry about. So you can put the caller on park 1 as an example, and when you do so, that person will stay in that park slot for up to 3 minutes, and that gives you the ability to call the user on the system that you want to be able to send that caller to, and tell them that there's, Bob Smith is waiting for them on park 1, and then at their leisure, they can pick that call up. A lot easier and less cumbersome than using transfer. Then in the middle of the display, you'll have the upper middle of the display. It will be the time and date. And of course, you have the 4 soft buttons on the phone's display, which will change based upon the phone status. So when, of course, it's idle, you'll see the call log, contact D&D, and menu selection. The call log just provides you access to the all inbound, outbound, missed, and forwarded calls. Contact list is a searchable directory, again, of all the users on the system. So D&D, which stands for Do Not Disturb, allows you to put your phone in Do Not Disturb mode and will send all calls, inbound calls from outside the system, as well as any users on the system internally that want to call you. And it will send all those calls directly to voicemail. So pay particular attention to using this because it doesn't automatically go off of Do Not Disturb unless we set it up to do so at your request. So if you're noticing that you're getting notifications of new voicemails on your phone, but the calls aren't ringing at your extension, then your phone is on Do Not Disturb. And then finally, the menu selection, which allows you access to changing feature settings, etc. For the most part, I would recommend that you not make any changes, because any changes you make on the phone will be overwritten whenever we provision the phone through the system. Okay, what does your phone display look like on inbound calls? So on an inbound call, this is exactly what your phone display will look like. You'll see a blue icon that shows a phone that's ringing, and it'll show, in this case, an internal username of Digital Future, an extension 500. If this were an external caller, it would show the caller name, if it's available, and the caller ID, if available as well. So what are your options on inbound calls? Well, your 4 soft buttons have changed from what they were with the phone idle to answer, forward, and reject. So what do those buttons do? When it, I've already covered that. So you can, of course, press the answer button. That will immediately answer the incoming call and route the call audio to the active audio connection. By default, answering the call by pressing this button enables the hands-free speakerphone. So usually using the answer button isn't the most efficient way to answer a call. The easier way is to either pick up the handset, or of course, if you have a wireless headset, then you can just press the multifunction button on the wireless headset to answer. If you press forward, you can actually forward that caller to another extension user on the system. and reject will immediately send the incoming call to your voicemail. So now if we're on live call, you'll of course continue to see the information, caller ID information, as well as the time counting down for how long you've been on the call. And the 4 soft buttons will again have changed. So of course, you can put the caller on hold by pressing the hold button, and the caller will hear music on hold. You can select the transfer button, which will begin the process of transferring the caller to another extension. You can hit the conference button, which will again put that current caller on hold and present dial tone so that you can dial an internal extension or dial an external number to start a conference. And of course, you can press the end button to end the call. Now, in all this, of course, you can still use the park buttons. And here we go. So, parking calls. So again, while on a live call, press a park button with a green LED. So any one of those park buttons, park 1, 2, or 3, are available currently for you to park this caller onto any one of them. So when you do so, the button itself will turn red. So the LCD display for the park buttons won't change from green to red, just the button itself. And it will change to red on all phones, indicating that there's a call parked on park 1. Now to unpark that call, either from your phone that you initially parked the call, or from any other phone, all the user has to do is press that park 1 button with the red indicator, and the call will immediately be transferred to their extension. Now just keep in mind that when you park a call at your phone then becomes considered idle, because this caller is no longer connected to your phone. It's now on a system-wide hold. So you can go ahead and make other calls. You can of course call somebody else who needs to pick that caller up off of the park slot, or you can do whatever else needs to be done in order to reach that person. So currently the system is configured so that if a call is parked in a park slot for more than 3 minutes, it will ring back to the extension that originally placed that call on park. So it will ring back and it will show you the caller ID information of that caller, and the buttons down here will change again and give you the option to either ignore the park call ringing back to you, or pick it up. Now, if you ignore it, all that does is put that caller back in that same park slot for another 3 minutes. The caller that's in the park slot doesn't know any of this. They are still just hearing music on hold. They don't know that it's rung to your extension and that you put them back in it. So just be aware that that will continue to happen every 3 minutes until, of course, someone picks up that parked caller or they hang up. Transferring calls. So again, while you're on a live call, you can press the transfer button to transfer a caller to another extension on the system. You have a couple of options for doing this. The easiest option is to just press whatever button represents the system user that you want to transfer that call to. So you don't have to use the transfer button at all in that case. So you're on a live call, you want to transfer that caller to Buddy, you press Buddy's button. And when you press Buddy's button, it will start the transfer process. Currently, the system is set up so that when you press one of these buttons, it does a supervised or attended transfer rather than a blind transfer. Now I can change that, and we can make the button selection a blind transfer, which means that it immediately sends the call to Buddy's extension and removes the call from your extension. And we can set that on a phone by phone or extension by extension basis. You will still have the option to do a supervised transfer by pressing the transfer button. So here we are in the midst of transferring a call using the attended transfer. So as soon as you press the transfer button or the button for Buddy, the system puts the caller on hold. And you can see that that caller is on hold. This yellow icon indicates that the caller is on hold. And a call has been started to Buddy so that you can talk to him before transferring the call. So once you've spoken to Buddy and confirmed the transfer, you press the transfer button again, and that completes the transfer of the caller to that target user, which is Buddy. Now you also have the ability to transfer callers directly to the voicemail box of any user on the system if you either know that person is not available or not at their desk or just doesn't want to take the call. So to do so, while you're speaking to the caller, you press that transfer button. And then instead of pressing a button representing the person you want to send the call to, you're going to dial *4 plus the extension number of the user you want to transfer that caller to voicemail. You then press transfer again, and it will immediately send that caller directly to that system user's voicemail without ringing that user's phone. Conference calls. So while you're on a live call, you press the conference button. You then enter the extension number of the user or select the user from the user buttons we've already spoken about. Or you can dial the number of an external party that you would like to add to the conference and press the dial button. So again, you can either dial the extension or you can select from those user buttons where you want that, what other caller you want to add to the conference. When that third participant answers, you press the conference button again. Or if there's any issue, like let's say rather than the actual person answering, you get their voicemail, you can press the end button to cancel the conference and start it over again and be able to talk to the other person that you started conferencing. But if everything goes the way you want it to, the other person answers, you press conference, and then all three participants are added together in the conference and can speak to each other. So this is what your display will look like when the conference is ongoing. You have a maximum of 3 participants, that includes yourself, that can be on a conference. So you will have the following soft button options when the conference is underway. If you press hold during the conference, all users will be put on hold and they will hear music on hold. If you select split, that splits each individual caller into their own session, and it allows you to use the direction keys to move between the different callers, have a live conversation with one while the other is still on hold, and vice versa. And then, of course, you can press the end key, which ends the conference for all participants. And that's it. So on to how you can request support. The best way to request support from us is to browse to our support portal and sign up. The sign up's very simple. It's just entering your email address and you pick a password of your choice. And by doing so, that gives you access to submit support requests. It also gives you the ability to have to chat with our support people live without having to wait. And we often like doing that as well because it allows us to immediately interact with you and to answer questions in an interactive way that's much faster. And it also, if for some reason we're not able to address or resolve the issue on the chat, we'll then convert that chat to a ticket in our system, and we'll start the process of working that ticket, and your email address will automatically be added to the ticket and you'll get updates. And then finally, the other option is to just send an email to support@dfcloudpbx.com. By doing so, it will be automatically be entered into our ticketing system, and you'll receive notification of any action on that ticket. So that's really it. I think we're good to go, and please email us if you have any questions, and look forward to getting everybody up and running. Thank you very much.